Hello, everybody. How are you doing? So we're partway through this, what for some is the first week of school, this first week of September, and I've been thinking a lot about the things that I used to worry about when it comes that first week of school. And Bear Grylls, the section I'm reading right now, is dealing a lot with fear, things like that. So I'd like to share with you. It's called Generation Fear. There are good reasons why some people call millennials Generation Fear. There are many factors, but one of them is the sudden and all consuming rise of social media. The online world can be vicious, dangerous, and unforgiving, and it can cause huge anxiety. The Bible is full of people who were scared. It describes so clearly the crippling, life sapping sensation that robs us of peace. But the Bible also shows a clear answer to fear, trusting in the promises that God speaks over our life. True affirmation, true strength, and true comfort come from being found, being known, and being loved by God. When we look elsewhere for meaning and purpose, we end up riddled with fear, anxiety, and FOMO. FOMO, fear of missing out. This is nature's way of saying, wrong place to look. Instead, look up. It's a lesson I've had to keep relearning, but I know this works. In the middle of our fears, the best thing is to put our confidence in the promises of Christ. We are loved. We are forgiven. We are held, strengthened, and given peace through the storms of life. We are safe and are being called home. And love wins all. When we live like this, we live truly empowered. We are found. He anointed us, set his seal of ownership on us, and put his spirit in our hearts. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 21 to 22. That really struck me, the generation fear, the millennials. Um, because if you think about it, anybody born in 2000 or after, this stuff, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, all the things that are not so nice, Facebook, there's all kinds of apps on our phones and things like that that these kids seem to be born knowing how to do. It's amazing how that evolution happens. And grandparents want to know how to make Facebook work or how to turn on their computer. They call an 8-year-old. They don't know how to read yet, but they know how to do computers. And the fact is that our children they are overwhelmed. They are inundated by information, and not by information the old way we used to get it, by newspapers that would be delivered to our houses, and we would sit and read them either first thing in the morning or after work. Um, Newspapers with articles that were written that had been nobody thought about. Yes, there'd be the op-ed, there'd be the opinion piece by the editor, but everything else would be well researched and could be proven, and nobody questioned. We were not overwhelmed. We knew what gossip was when we heard it, and if bad news was flowing through town, we always knew we could turn to somebody. We could ask, okay, what's really happening? That it couldn't be that bad. Or if it is, then we find out the truth pretty quickly. Rumors always happen, things like that. But you know what I mean? We weren't overwhelmed. We didn't know immediately that somebody had been elected. We'd have to wait for the morning to find out on the news who was the new president. We couldn't watch the polls and guess and have all the people, on the night of our Canadian election doing the whole, and the CBC calls it, that kind of thing, long before even the West Coast has voted yet. Um, these young people are being bombarded with information they haven't got the ability to process. Their brains aren't formed until they're well into their 20s, and thanks be to God for that, because it took me until well into my 20s to come to have what I'm now thinking of as more like common sense. But the reality is that they are being asked to process and take into their hearts and their minds, into their intellects, into their faith, things that adults are still struggling to understand. And nobody questions it. It just happens. Now, I'm not suggesting we roll back electronics, that, things like this disappear. But I am saying we need to be very aware of it and what it's doing to our young people. What is it doing to our young people? And I'm not making arguments about, violent video games or things like that. But what I'm saying is, think about what we grew up with. When I grew up with, I mentioned the other day, I think I grew up with things like, cowering underneath our desks, because there was the big bomb, the A bomb might go off, or there was a tornado warning. And how ridiculous was that? For a little while, when I was in about grade 8, so 1984, I think it was, there was a movie called The Day After, and everybody in my class watched it but me, and I'm so glad I didn't. I don't know why I didn't, but it was a 2 night thing and it was on after my bedtime, so that's probably why. But everybody else, or most everybody else, watched it and they were terrified for months. I mean, it was on in the fall, like October, and right up at graduation of grade 8 in June, people were still talking about it and how terrifying it was. And it was the day after the bomb, the big nuclear bomb would go off, the big mushroom cloud. It had a significant impact on the way my generation thought, because I still think about that. I still know exactly where I was and what I was doing. The first time I heard about that, I was laying on my back in the grass in my backyard, and my friend Kim had come over, and we were laying on the grass and we were pushing the swing set, the seat of the swing set, with our feet and watching the clouds in the blue sky one Friday after school. And she was telling me about this movie she watched. That's how strong the impact was, that I can remember that. And that was one movie in one particular part of my life. And now our young people are bombarded by things like that and worse, 24 hours a day. And to be quite realistic, most of them are attached to their phones 24 hours a day. There are some families that have been put in, when they come home, the cell phone goes away or can't have it at the table. But for the most part, people have their devices with them all the time, or at least within hand's reach. I know I do. I shouldn't. And I'm trying at night to put it away and not grab my phone until bedtime when I need to plug it in. But the reality is, our young people are bombarded by that, and the fears that come with that have become normalized for them. We have this whole millennial generation, and those will come after them, who think that this kind of fear is normal. So it's on us, it's on the older generations, it's on the ones coming up, it's on those who believe in God, who believe that there is something greater than that fear, which is insipidly not as bad as it might seem. It doesn't seem as bad as it is, because they are bombarded by it all the time and it has become their new normal. They don't understand how bad, how fearful that really is. And one way, that's not a bad thing, that they're not as fearful as they could be, but on the other hand, they have become immune to the warning systems, the things that were built in within us that say, don't go there. Like the old stranger danger thing. Don't go there. Look both ways before you cross the street. We need to bring them the reality, the truth, that there is something greater than what they fear, even if they don't understand that they fear it. And that reality is a relationship with God. We have, I remember feeling scared about that movie and what it meant, and reading books about things like that, and it terrified me. And then I remember going to church, and God bless him, Father John Blair, who was our priest at St. Martin in the Fields in Niagara Falls in 1983, 1984. I remember him bringing that up and talking about that movie that came out. And I remember not exactly what he said, but I remember thinking, God's got this. That bomb is only a bomb. God is bigger than the bomb. I also remember thinking that God will stop the fingers that would push the button to blow up the bomb, but, I was naive and young. However, I was given a sense of peace because I believed that God would not let that happen. Now I have a more mature, adult way of thinking about God, and I recognize God is not a panacea. God is not a magic pill that just makes everything go away. But I also know that in my heart of hearts, deep down in my soul, I am no longer afraid. Fearful from time to time, yes, but I do not have a deep-seated fear of those things, because I have a deep-seated trust in God, who is bigger than all the fears. He who anointed me and set his seal of ownership upon me and put his spirit in my heart. That's what we need to give to our young people. We can't change the reality of the world they live in, but we can change the fact that they don't hear about hope. And that's our job. Those of us who know hope, those of us who love God, It's our job to teach them. And there's no excuse for us not doing our job. The generation fear, not Gen X, not Gen Y, generation fear, we need to turn that into generation hope. You ready? I don't know if I am, but we have no choice. We got to get going. So let's go out and spread hope. Have a great day. God bless you. And I'll see you again tomorrow for Church and Home with Rachel.